One of the hardest things for people to do who are in a bad situation is admit that they have a problem, whether they're an addict, in an abusive relationship, or just maybe stuck in a rut. Admitting that you have a problem feels like, yeah, it's something to be ashamed of. It's like, it's your fault. You got into this position. And as long as you don't admit it, things may just work out okay. Well, the comic industry has this problem. Let's talk about that. Hey, everybody, this is Perch. Now, some people are not going to like this idea that I'm comparing the comic industry to addicts. And of course, it's not an apples to apples comparison by any stretch of the imagination. It's that result. It's that first step people often have to take to make their lives better. And this is true of everything. This is when you go to college and you have a choice. You can screw around, you can get your work done. When you're done with college, you can move back in with your parents and go get a job. You can try and sustain yourself. Or maybe you just want to see the world, but you're afraid of going to new places and you need to take that first step. Admitting that you have a difficult problem ahead of you and that there is a problem, the problem of inaction. It's very hard for people to do. And it's extremely true for the comic book industry. The comic industry has many, many problems. And there's a lot of very obvious evidence. I mean, I've talked about now, must have been at least 100 videos on the various situations and problems that the comic industry faces. The least of which is you look around and you see multi-billion-dollar movies being made with these characters, and you see creators and editors, people are at the kind of the lifeline of this industry, living on $30,000, $40,000 a year, sharing apartments, worrying about insurance, getting evicted, needing to do GoFundMes for basic things like beds and furniture. That's not how it should be. And the comic industry does have a problem. But unfortunately, one of the traps of this industry, and many industries, frankly, is that there's a stigma to saying there's a problem. There's a stigma behind wanting more. I've interviewed a bunch of comic creators, and one common thread that I get out of a lot of them is that when you're successful, you kind of have to hide it or apologize for it. If you get a hit book or a good deal, or you negotiate a nice contract, you have a good GoFundMe, whatever it happens to be, it's embarrassing. It's something to kind of keep secret. And therein lies the trap, because if you keep it secret, then nobody knows that success is possible. They might suspect it, but nobody's talking about it. And so it reinforces that you got to keep it quiet to others. And if everybody's keeping it quiet, then nobody is really pushing to get something more. Now, I'm not talking about a revolution. I'm not saying that the whole comic industry needs to suddenly unionize and demand higher wages, nothing like that. I'm simply saying that the comic industry needs to believe that success is possible, that it can get better. Maybe we can talk about retailers, we can talk about distributors, we can talk about publishers, we can talk about creators. We should all be striving to make life better tomorrow than it is today. We should be creating ways to make more money in this industry. We should be looking at why there's so many failures. And by the way, when I say failure, so here's a perfect example. Marvel Comics has launched several series over the last several years, from Future Foundation to the World of Wakanda book, where the comic is canceled before the first issue even really hits the stands. It doesn't even get 6 issues for a trade paperback. So it begs the question, why did they start this in the first place? Marvel and DC both have the biggest names, biggest properties in the world. Everybody knows who Batman is, who Spider-Man is, and even their sub-characters, even the second string, are fairly well known. So why do so many comics fail? Why do new initiatives like Mosaic or the New Age of Heroes go nowhere? That shouldn't be, and somebody within the publisher should be asking themselves, why did this happen? Why did this not succeed? But to the contrary, if you talk to people within the publisher, you find out that not only are those questions not being asked, but anyone who kind of dares hint at those questions is labeled a problem. They're encouraged to not come back. Their contracts are not renewed. You can't point out failure. You can't point out things that don't work. But in life, you have to. If you're ever going to grow, you have to take stock of what went right and what went wrong and try and improve the things that went wrong. That's how you learn. That's how you do better next time. Comics doesn't do this. They're stuck in this perpetual world where they don't admit they have a problem. But they do. The comic industry is lagging behind almost every other entertainment medium there is. Other regions continue to be more successful in getting new properties out, getting them marketed, getting them into the hands of people, and creating merchandising opportunities. They're doing a better job than US comics, which arguably the US is the birthplace of how you turn entertainment properties into huge, big successes. So why isn't that working for comics? Why is it that Marvel, who is owned by Disney, one of the digital powerhouses in the country, let alone the world, who until fairly recently had Apple on their board, why was their digital strategy so pathetic? Why is Mile High Comics, one of the biggest biggest retailers in the country, have a website that looks right at home at 1994 Angel Fire? Does that make sense? The comic industry has a problem. It has a problem with success. It teaches the people within it that success is something to be ashamed of. If you're doing a great job, if you're getting a comic out there, don't brag, because people will come after you and will start attacking you. You must live in kind of this perpetual state of poverty. But by the way, if you call out that poverty, you're also part of the problem. It's a trap. I feel bad for new people entering the comic industry who do not have a good mentor to help show them the ropes. Hey, you can talk about this, but not this. Be careful about this and not that. Don't follow these people. That's no good. And whatever you do, don't question. Just recently, there were a bunch of posts made on Twitter. There's a thread as a result of the ongoing protests around Black Lives Matter and the horrific situation that happened. As part of that, people were encouraged to post their rates, and the results were frightening. To see that a lot of companies, a lot of publishers, had not even cracked the $100 mark per page. $100. And many were below that. And about midway through this activity, a lot of people started to point out that the numbers that were being posted, which were already pathetically low, were inflated. People were exaggerating their pay because they didn't want to look too sad. But unfortunately, all of the rates that were shown were sad. To see that people were offered $125 a page at Marvel, to see that DC was leading the pack at $225, and bear in mind, by the way, there are other rates out there, higher and lower. It's ridiculous. That is not an appropriate wage for a major entertainment property. And I think we all know that. But why doesn't the comic industry admit it? If they admit that, then we can start taking steps to actually make things better, to repair the situation, to get things on the right track. But you have to admit you have a problem. And the comic industry has a problem. Not only are they not admitting it, they're in hard denial of any of these problems. You mention them and you will be met with extreme resistance. Why do you hate comics? I think comics are wonderful. What's wrong with you? There's another hater. Toxic fans are at it again. I'm not excusing, by the way, or saying that the behavior of people who pile on and harass people is appropriate on any level. No matter how offensive Mags Visagio's tweet was about a baseball bat, enduring years, literally years, there are still people who start threads talking about that tweet, which has been apologized for and deleted. Now, you want to go after it for something else, be my guest, but at some point, you got to let some of these issues go. It's over. I'm not saying that that behavior at all is appropriate or makes any sense. I'm not saying that the comic industry has a problem. The solution is to harass and dogpile people. I'm not saying that at all. But when fans talk about it's wrong that these rates are too small, it's wrong that they're stuffing the shelves with titles that don't sell, it's wrong that these books that are coming out have no hope, that they're laughable on the surface, When the New Warriors announcement broke, I mean, the creative team involved, the writer, known for doing comedy, I feel bad for that guy. I mean, he was put in a position where this is the book they commissioned from him. This was the pitch they wanted him to go for. This was what they asked. Why? It's only setting up failure. And it's hard to tell at comics sometimes. It's just hard to tell if the people in charge don't want to be there. Are they asleep at the wheel? Is it like the 90s and some of them are coked out of their minds? What's going on? There's no reason the industry should be like this. There's no reason why incredibly talented artists. I mean, here's the thing. Writers and artists, it's a labor to draw all these pages at fidelity. I am unclear what other industry has this amount of effort, of physical labor, of time that goes into drawing these pages and doing this work and pays people what they pay them. I mean, can you imagine doing a 22-page comic book and walking away with $2,500? Not $1,000, $2,500. That is not enough money. Not by a long shot. There are manager jobs at McDonald's that make more than that, with benefits. Does that seem right to you? The comic industry has to admit it has a problem. It has a problem with success. Otherwise, it's just going to stay here. But I look at this and I see people fiercely protecting any criticism of this industry. And if they were just gatekeeping people wanting to, insult Miles Morales or some kind of ideological thing, okay. I still think it's better to let people have their opinions, but that would make more sense than people gatekeeping basic comments like, hey, a single point of failure for distribution is a bad idea. Hey, these page rates are too small. Hey, these titles are getting canceled after 2 issues. Why in the hell did they do that in the first place? Hey, where's the marketing? This shouldn't be a controversy. And we have to start admitting, and I just, in my head, I can't help but thinking that there's some people on top that encourage this very, very closed walls, thou shalt not insult anything, because it allows them to keep their positions of power. It allows them to stay on top. It allows them to be a big fish in a tiny pond. And too insecure to go and actually fight in some bigger waters, or just willing to settle for what little they have, they're going to cling on to the notion that any criticism is unacceptable. And that's the difference, by the way, between legitimate criticism in my mind and just trolling and fighting. When we get pushback of any criticism, we're on the wrong track. I think it's not hard to determine who's trolling and who's attacking and who's doing something slanderous and wrong, and who actually cares about this industry. So really, it's the people who care about the comic industry or the people who are pointing out, this is not okay. These problems are problems and have to be solved. Those are the people who care about the comic industry, not the people telling everybody to shut up, not the people who are encouraging sycophants to go and troll and attack anyone who criticizes them, to empower people to do, anti-ops of calling these people, slanderous names because they dare to claim that creators should make more money. That doesn't make any sense. This world is backwards. I don't know. Comic industry, there's a lot of power, a lot of good things that could happen, but we got to start demanding that these changes get made. Leave your comments below. Would love to know what you think about all this. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.